Our scripture comes from 1 Samuel, chapter 3, verses 1 through 18. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord under Eli. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he could not see, was lying down in his room. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called, "Samuel, Samuel." And he said, "Here I am," and ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call. Lie down again." So he went and lay down. The Lord called again, "Samuel." Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call, my son. Lie down again." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel again, a third time. And he got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." Then Eli perceived that the Lord was calling the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, "Go, lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Now the Lord came and stood there, calling as before, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Then the Lord said to Samuel, "See, I am about to do something in Israel that will make both ears of anyone who hears of it tingle. On that day I will fulfill against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house, from beginning to end. For I have told him that I am about to punish his house forever for the iniquity that he knew, because his sons were blaspheming God, and he did not restrain them. Therefore I swear to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be expiated by sacrifice or offering forever." Samuel lay there until morning. Then he opened the doors of the house of the Lord. Samuel was afraid to tell the vision to Eli. But Eli called Samuel and said, "Samuel, my son." He said, "Here I am." Eli said, "What was it that he told you? Do not hide it from me. May God do so to you and more also, if you hide anything from me of all that he told you." So Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. Then he said, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him." Toward the end of 2025, we had our 6-month meeting with our financial planner. Being retired, we seek to manage our funds as best we can. As a retired small church minister and pastoral counselor, many my age who have worked as professionals in other fields have exceeded my income over the years. So, my wife and I seek professional guidance for our journey through the retired life. One thing that concerned us was a life insurance policy we'd taken out in August of 1989. What was the value of the policy now? What was our $50 monthly payment doing for us? We were assured that when we took out the policy that the value of the policy would increase over the years. but we didn't know what it was worth now. So I did some research and learned that the policy did have some value, but when I reached age 81, the policy would expire. As I grow older, my journey toward 81 looms closer. My financial planner suggested that if the policy had value, we could take the value and use it for the things that we need for everyday retirement life rather than take money out from our retirement savings. Since we were going to not have it for an extended period of time if we didn't take it out, I thought this might be a good course of action. So I did a little more research and found out that the value of the policy was over $25,000. We thought this could be very beneficial if anything unexpected popped up during the retirement years, rather than use our retirement savings. So I called my insurance agent to see what the next steps would be for receiving the funds. Before I engaged the insurance agents in what I needed to do to issue a check, I awoke early one morning about 3 o'clock. In my head popped the phrase, I needed to give the money to Puerto Rico. Though Jean and I have started Hermandad and donate regularly to Hermandad to support the mission and encourage others to do the same, I had not considered this new possible funding source as money for Hermandad until I did. So Jean and I started the $25,000 endowment fund as the Reverend John and Mrs. G. Knight Endowment Fund for Puerto Rico. We manage it through the American Baptist Foundation. Our first donor outside of Jean and myself was a person who was aware of the work we're doing for Puerto Rico and wanted to support our efforts through the endowment fund. Our endowment fund's first gift was Corporación Milagros del Amor in Caguas, Puerto Rico. We donated to them in February of 2026. They were the first recipient of our gift in 2019 when with $1,000 we started Hermandad and used the $1,000 to ship a donated van to Puerto Rico so that Corporación Milagros del Amor could use it and discard their quickly depleting fleet of vehicles. Though I hadn't thought of using this for that purpose, I recognized that that call that morning was divine, and that was a call for me to follow God's voice and continue our work to a new level for the people of Puerto Rico. The prophet Samuel did not know the voice of the Lord until he did. And so too, I did not know the voice until I awoke and knew that the words that came to me were divine. So I stated aloud how we would use the money and then went back to sleep. We never know when God is going to call us, when God is going to speak to us, and how God is going to guide us further in our journey. Jean and I started Ermendath in 2019, but we first came to Puerto Rico a few years before. When we first came to Puerto Rico, we fell in love with the people, and we fell in love with the island. After Hurricane Maria, we decided to come back. But when we came back, we were going to bring extra suitcases that we were allowed to bring, filled with supplies that we were allowed to fill and take. In 2018, our first trip back after Hurricane Maria, Jean contacted an agency in Caguas and found out what supplies they needed and spent 3 days filling up suitcases. And we packed the suitcases, brought them to Puerto Rico, and were picked up at the airport so that we could give the suitcases to the agency. As we visited that time, we got to see and connect with the members of the staff of the agency. We got to see the stripped trees that Hurricane Maria left. We got to see the buildings fallen from their foundations. The floors collapsed from the storm. And our hearts ached for all the people that had experienced this. And Jean and I both dedicated ourselves to doing more. And we kept coming. For 2019, on our visit, we brought more supplies and came to the same agency. We, this time, included a trip to going with the social work students to deliver groceries to the people in the community and outside the inner city of Caguas. As we rode in the van, it was clear to us that Korma needed another van. All the windows leaked, some of the doors didn't work, and we were entering and exiting through the front passenger side door to get to the back and sit down. With that experience, Jean and I knew what we were going to do. I was about to retire, and I already had a non-profit pastoral counseling service. So what we determined we would do was, first, I would find Korma a van. I spent all summer, and in August, I found a used van that a hospital in Florida donated, and we paid with our $1,000 donation to ship to Puerto Rico. We shipped it after we changed our name from Night Counseling and Spiritual Direction to Ermendath Incorporated, which means brotherhood or sisterhood, or fraternity or sorority. And with that name in Spanish, Ermendath began. And our first act of love toward the people of Puerto Rico was realized. We never know when God is going to speak to us. We never know when God's voice will call us. The prophet Samuel heard God's call, and it took him 3 times before he recognized God calling him. But he did, and he spoke, and Eli listened. It only took our 2019 spring visit before we realized that we were going to do more for the people of Puerto Rico. When we first started, I thought that maybe we would have a youth fund for Puerto Rico, because Jean and I were just two people. But God's voice and God's call showed us that we were called to do more. After the van and Maria happened and Fiona happened, we continued to help the people of Puerto Rico. Even during COVID, we sent supplies that disappeared from the shelves faster on the island than the mainland. And we still keep coming now. At first, when we started Hermandad, though we lived in Maryland, we had no one we knew who held the same hope and love for Puerto Rico when we started. But as we continued our work, people from Puerto Rico, people with a love for Puerto Rico, appeared to us and helped us along the way, both with their volunteer work and with their donations. Since our first year, we have given this year 18-fold of what we gave our first year in just 2 months. We juggle our resources. Juggling is an important thing to do. Juggling is good for your brain. We use both sides of our brain when we juggle. It's a cross-lateral exercise. We also use both sides of our bodies when we juggle. We also use our whole bodies when we do our work for the people of Puerto Rico. We started first with the General Fund. We used the General Fund for shipping the donated van to Puerto Rico. That was our first fund. And then we had the Memorial Fund. We used the Memorial Fund for youth. It was named after my parents, Jack and Eunice Knight, who were youth leaders throughout their lives, both in the church setting and in the greater community. And then we developed the Reverend John and Mrs. Jean Knight Endowment Fund for Puerto Rico. We use it in the present and have it for the future as well. This fund is designed to be used when Jean and I are gone. The prophet Samuel did not first recognize God's call, yet he did, but not on his own. It was Eli in verse 9 who recognized that God was calling him. And it was the fourth time for Samuel to understand that God was calling him. Also, we learn that the message is a message for Eli, and the fact that Eli's sons were going to face consequences. Though Samuel was afraid to tell the message, he carried forth the message to Eli. Eli's words are, "It is the Lord, let him do what seems good to him." We know that sometimes the words we hear are challenging words. Sometimes, as we seek to do God's work, we need to engage others. And so now we're asking for you to join us. In other times, we remember that Jesus called us to remember that God is a God of love, and God calls us to love. We may not always act as we wish people would act, but we know that those who work with us are working for the Lord, and we thank them for each effort. You too can join us. Consider joining us with your prayers and your financial gifts. When we first started Hermandad, it was the donation of the van to the Corporación Milagros del Amor in 2019. When we first started the Reverend John and Mrs. Jean Knight Endowment Fund for Puerto Rico, it was for Korma that we gave our first gift. To Korma we gave our first gift in February of 2026. We're inviting you to join us now in this ministry. You can donate on our website or mail your check to the American Baptist Foundation, the Reverend John and Mrs. Jean Knight Endowment Fund for Puerto Rico, account number 1897, 420 West Germantown Pike, East Norriton, Pennsylvania, 19304. Help us fulfill God's call to do more. We still have more to do. Come, journey with us. Donate now. Thank you. Amen.